Hi guys, I'm Shmi, and today we have one very yellow car to take a look at. This is the Corvette Grand Sport. It bridges the gap between the regular Stingray and the 659 horsepower Z06, the track weapon. This car fits in the middle. It's got the 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8, 466 horsepower, 630 Newton meters of torque, but it has some of the driving dynamics and track sort of focused characteristics that come from the Z06. So today we're going to take a walk around. I'll show you all around the car before taking it out for a drive to give you some impressions of what it's like from behind the wheel. But before we get started, let's check it out. Oh, let's go. Let's talk Grand Sport, and with the sun out, the racing yellow paintwork is really standing out. It's not a car you should drive if you want to be discreet. From a power point of view, you've got that engine up front, the 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8. So the Z06 has a supercharger giving it the extra 200 horsepower, but this has a lot of the kind of track characteristics and driving style from that car that we'll talk about shortly, because of course it's driven through the rear wheels. Two-wheel drive from the back, and of particular note is the gearbox. Let me open up the door just quickly. 7-speed manual transmission, so good old gear stick in the centre, 3 pedals down there, basically make it a driver's car, a car that is focused on driving enjoyment and, well, maximum experience at the track, shall we say. A car that you can drive to the track and comfortably drive home. There's a lot of luggage capacity, it's reasonable to drive on the roads, but it's certainly going to be quite fun when you're out on circuit as well. So, driven through the back, the car is available in 2 different configurations. This is the sort of first aero kit, has a slightly smaller wing and Pilot Super Sport tyres. If you have the second kit, you have Sport Cup 2 tyres, a larger wing and slightly more aggressive styling. Although, when you come around here and look at the exhaust, it's got the performance exhaust system with the quad tips at the back in the centre. It looks rather aggressive as it is. So let's have a look, I think, at the engine, show you what that looks like. I always like opening up a Corvette engine bay because it goes the opposite way. So let's come round, lift this open. There we go. Front mid-engine, behind the front axle, of course. That is where the power is coming from. Not too much to see underneath the engine cover, of course, but it certainly sounds good, as you're going to hear shortly. The vent through the front for additional cooling. Just close that back down, give it a click into place. Talk a little bit about the styling as well while I'm outside of the car. Click. So you've got different wheels for the Grand Sport, and I really like this design, I have to say. The 5 sort of twin spoke, I think it's a very cool wheel. Ceramic brakes. You get different sort of side skirts depending on the package you have. You can have them in carbon fibre. You have the distinct Grand Sport duct here on the front, 3/4 on the fenders. And you've got some intake vents here and down there at the lower side as well, beneath the wing, which has the flap for downforce. And an interesting fact is between Kit 1 and Kit 3 on the Z06, it impacts top speed by 15 kilometers an hour. So it's quite significant by getting that extra downforce, what difference it makes when you're sort of going on a high-speed run, for example. Let's come have another look at the interior quickly, and I'll come back to this much more when we return shortly from a little drive. I'm going to start it up, show you the dashboard and dials, and a little bit of what you've got in here. Keyless system. Let's go. And the rumble comes into life. A little needle sweep. You've got all sorts of different driving modes. Just turn down the vents so we don't have that noise for the moment. Mode selector here where you can go through the different settings. Sport mode. gives us a different display, track mode gives us a different display again. And as you can hear, it's quite an animal when you do that. Has a lot of different sort of technology, various different traction modes, the performance traction settings that you can go through. You can see we've got Wi-Fi hotspots, we've got all sorts. So if we go through here, you can see, oh, I went through the menu too quickly. You can see you've got the different performance traction settings, which I won't necessarily be playing with right this second, but they all sort of contribute to the car's experience on track, how you can set it up and have it basically exactly how you want it for that kind of environment. So it's definitely a bit of a beast. You can remove the roof if you want to. That can be lifted off. It's a carbon fiber roof panel. It can be stored away in the boot. I'll probably show you that a little bit later on. But I think it's enough talking. Time to take the car for a little run out on the road. Okay then, so we are in the car, in the Grand Sport. This is a little bit familiar because I have driven the Z06 before. I've actually been driving this car obviously before now as well, but let's talk you through it from the start. You feel pretty much at home straight away. It's comfortable, it's very driver focused. Everything is pointing at me, all the screens, all the controls, all the displays, everything. Let's pop it into first gear, drive away. We're in eco mode, which we're not going to be staying in for long, so actually let's turn that straight out to Tour, then to Sport. So sport mode sounds like a good place to get started. Still in control and safe, but ready to head out onto the roads. Oh, I've made a dog woof away quite dramatically. I hope he's okay, not too insulted by a bright yellow car. Sounds good. You can immediately hear the noise, and this is in sport mode, so the valves are up and running. I turned the aircon off earlier. Let's turn that back on because it's a warm day even though it's cloudy, but just putting your foot down, there's a lot of torque available. It pulls away very, very nicely, but you can feel it's driver focused. You've got a very heavy clutch, pretty firm steering. The steering changes. In fact, when you change the driving modes, there are 12 parameters that change, but you can set any of them in the mode you want it to stay in. So that's quite a clever trick, customization setup that it's got. We've got the sunshine out now. Maybe I should have the roof off, but it might be a bit blustery in here, so we'll take that off afterwards to enjoy it. Top down, but just driving like this, it's gentle. It's definitely on the firm side, but not unreasonably so. You know, this is a track car. It's supposed to be fun when you get to the racetrack as well and give you a driver experience and feeling of engagement when you're driving it on the road like I am now. And one thing that's quite interesting is you look down the sort of I guess cut-out shape in the front scuttle over the front bonnet, and it feels like the tarmac's right in front of you, which for a car with a relatively long bonnet is quite a nice sensation and feeling, because you don't kind of feel like you have no idea where the front of it actually is. Now another feature if you have the manual gearbox is the ability to rev match. So it has the paddles on the back of the steering wheel, but in here they turn on the rev matching as so I don't need to do anything. It will blip itself to match the gear downshifts, and I don't know, it's whether you like that or not. Some people do, some people don't, but at least in here, by doing that, you don't change anything else about the drive, only the paddles, so you're not sort of required to have it in a sportier setting or something that you can't reconfigure. So you can set up the car how you want it. If you want to heel and toe and do it yourself, you can. The car is not going to stop you. When you put your foot down, it starts to feel like all hell is breaking loose. It may not be the quickest car in the world with only, and I put that in quotation marks, 466 horsepower, but the noise it makes is really quite special and involving. It makes you feel like you're going to kind of connected to the car, and you're involved in this driving experience. You're the one piloting the vehicle, and you get that feedback and engagement through it, which is what this kind of thing is about, why it's sort of fun to buy these track kind of focused cars. And this thing, for the price point, this is a sort of €95,000 car here in Europe. As a base car, about 103,000 in this configuration, so not too much by way of options to add. But the sense of drama is really quite exciting, and that's something I particularly like. Even just doing that, down through the gears. car. You're holding the Alcantara steering wheel, you've got a really nice feel to the kind of Alcantara on the gear stick. It's basically just a nice experience as well as being quite a fun sports car to drive, and I love the Z06 when I drive that, so I don't think it's that surprising that I would enjoy this too. It's obviously similar in philosophy but different in setup. It's a different sort of unique configuration just for this car, but let's also just try this in track mode, where basically, I mean, I'm not going to drive it any more aggressively than I already am, but you get the sort of horizontal rev counter across, which is a pretty fun sort of display. Nice style and setup. Drop it down just because I can, right? It sounds so wonderful when you put your foot down. Just listen to the way it screams. This is a proper muscle car. The noise, the way it revs up, it only goes to 6,500, but you have a sort of satisfaction as it gets there, as you build up those revs, the sort of way the power is delivered through it. Definitely when you're turned up into track mode, I can feel it is substantially firmer. There is a lot more vibration coming through from the road, and then you can go one further and do all the sort of, what do you call them, performance traction modes as well. Or you can go, as I've just done, to wet mode, where basically everything gets even softer, becomes a little bit more of a smoother drive. You've got a different interface. But yeah, I have to say, so far, so good. It's a very nice all-round kind of package. No complaints at all. There's good visibility looking around. Plenty through the door mirrors. You're sat very far to the left, so by having this whole driver focus set up inside, you feel like you're right up to the edge of the car, which means that the right side, in this case, is a very long way away. But in terms of what you get for the price point, you're sort of talking, I guess, Cayman GT4 money. A bit more power, probably a bit more in terms of looks. I'd say if you turn up in this car, it's very definitely sports car category, but if you turn up to a supercar event in this, you're not going to get turned away. It still has a little bit of that drama and sort of presence, especially in bright yellow, maybe not so much in a darker colour. But I think this is quite interesting in my recent What is a Supercar video, because this to some people is definitely a supercar, to others probably not. That's just how it varies depending where you are. In America they might be a little bit more common, but they're quite new over here. It's the first generation of Corvette that's been officially sold over here. The Stingray has been very popular to an extent. The Z06 is certainly picking up, but I think the Grand Sport makes for a pretty good overall package, and I haven't even driven it yet with the roof off, which is of course something to try down the line. I think maybe everything is a little bit, could be a little bit fancier, but this has the nice carbon trim. It all looks good. It's very functional. You've got the performance data recorder. You've got a whole bunch of other things. That's a particularly nasty bump. Wasn't too hard riding at all. So yeah, all very good so far. I've stopped to give you a little bit more of a tour of the interior and show you the dashboard, the displays, how all of that works. But just what I'm thinking lastly about the driving experience and how it sort of compares to, say, the GT4. It's faster, but perhaps not quite as clinical. I don't really know how to put that into words more than that. In terms of sort of the GT8, for example, the Aston GT8, that's much more of an occasion, an event, because everything's so hard work and, let's say, not so convenient as this. Whereas this feels like a car you can drive kind of all the time. So for its price point, it's a very nice place to be. Now, when we get to the displays and the like, you can see the dashboard in front of me. Large central screen, surrounded by the speedometer at the left, up to 330 kilometers an hour. It's about 200 miles an hour. And then on the right, the fuel gauge and the temperature. You've got a lot of buttons and controls. The head-up display, mirrors over here. I'm not sure if you can just make out the head-up display. If I zoom in on it, you can see it there. And you can change the, that's the position. There you can change what you can see in it, so you can have that horizontal rev counter with information or less information depending what you want. I just pull the camera back out again. One of the things that I suppose is less nice is that the buttons are, I guess, a little bit on the plasticky kind of end and awkward and fiddly, and sometimes you might think the rev match is kind of just left over from the paddle shift version of the car, and that's kind of a bit of an afterthought, but it does work. It does work neatly. You can do it either hand. I guess you just want to turn it on once and then you leave it on, so it could be a button away on the dashboard or something. Volume controls, you push them towards you, which is strange, but fine. Start button's here. You can put the screen down, and then there's a storage box behind it with a USB port, but that's plenty big enough for, well, my whole hand could fit in there, so even a video camera could fit in there probably. Bring the screen back up, the usual controls you expect underneath, where you have, well, a couple of things we can talk about. The performance data recorder where the car's built-in cameras will do their thing, and you can look back, save it all to an SD card, and use that later. If we go to the right, you've got the cameras. You turn on the front cameras, you can see. You can put on the rear camera. That's a pretty decent system, really, to be honest. And you've got Wi-Fi and all sorts of other things. So from a data and sort of setup point of view, this system is really, really good. Full credit to them for that. That's very nice. Little Grand Sport logo here with a car with number 12 on it. Underneath all the climate control settings. Cup holders. This feels a bit cheap, I'm not going to lie. Especially if you compare that to Porsche cup holders, but we're being fiddly. Drive selector is quite nice. You've got another storage bucket here. Oh, jacket in the way. Oh, didn't mean to slam that down. But you can see here what I mean about the passenger side being separate. It's nice that they can do the cooling and heated seats from a display panel over there on the aircon vent. But apart from that, basically everything's completely closed off other than the grab handle. So you put your passenger over there and they stay there pretty much. Button to open the door, the passenger door, which is different to the driver door, which is here. Seat controls, well, memory seat controls, and then if I open the door, you can see we've got some electrical adjustment down here for the seats too, and an emergency release for the door if it failed to open from the electrics for whatever reason. So right behind us, you can see where all our luggage is. There's quite a lot of storage space in the rear hatch. We'll jump out though, because I want to show you how the roof works. Firstly, you open these latches either side. If you can see this, that just pulls back like that. Then on this side, so you pull the visor down, then you open up the latch. He says if you do it, there we go, that opens all the way up. Then you've got this one at the back, which I gather you release and do that. Now the roof is ready to be lifted off, but I obviously can't do this alone, so give me 1 second.
Oh, hey Tim, didn't know you were dropping by today. See my new house.
Yeah, very nice. So Benzine's going to help me lift off the roof. Firstly, let me just open the boot, which opens up. It has a soft close when you close it back down, but we kind of need to shuffle some luggage because otherwise this isn't going to work, is it? So you have to make sure that your luggage is in an appropriate position, something like this. Then, when we get the roof off, it's going to sit nicely in place on top of that. So I've unlatched it all. We'd lift it up from the front. We need to put this back down slightly, otherwise we'll never get around it. Lift it up from the front and out of the back, and it weighs nothing because it's carbon fiber. Take it over. You need to open up the boot if you can, and then basically slide it in, and it goes into those mount points, sits down at the back, and done.
How easy is that?
That was pretty neat. And then you have the convertible. I put the sun visors back up, I suppose. Let's shut it off just for a second. Close the doors. Looks like a pretty good car to drive to me. I think it's probably Ben's turn.
Yeah, go on then.
Let's wrap it up there then. Just some driving impressions while taking the car out and what it feels like to me. Overall, a pretty impressive car that's punching well above its weight, I think. A couple of small niggles and funny things about it, but it looks really, really good, especially in the bright yellow. Very top end of sports car segment going on supercar, and a rather exciting one to be driving as well. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, having a good look around the Corvette Grand Sport. I'm going to wrap it up there though, so thank you very much as always for watching, guys. Make sure you're subscribed for plenty more cars on the Shmee 150 channel. That's it for now though. I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers.